Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take a collection of sources today that's recent Nigerian news headlines and a Did You Know section from the Nigerian Affairs and News Digest, dated May 25th, 2025. And we pull out the core insights, basically giving you a shortcut to understanding what's going on. So our mission today, get a handle on the big stories happening in Nigeria, uncover maybe some surprising details, and see if any larger themes jump out from this snapshot.
It's quite a mix, isn't it? Looking at these headlines, you see everything from high-level government decisions right down to very personal challenges people are facing.
Exactly. Okay, let's dive in. Maybe start with national affairs and governance. There's quite a bit here. First up, the NNPC, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, they've announced a shutdown of the Port Harcourt refinery for maintenance. Now, for any oil producer like Nigeria, any refinery disruption feels like, well, a big deal, right?
It is, yeah. Because despite having all that crude oil, Nigeria actually imports a lot of its refined fuel. So maintenance is obviously necessary, but how long this shutdown lasts, how effective it is, that really impacts fuel supply. And potentially, the cost of things for ordinary Nigerians. It brings up that whole question of energy security and refining capacity again.
Right. Then shifting gears to something much heavier. There's a report of a mass burial in Taraba State. This follows what the reports call herder attacks. And sadly, this isn't a one-off incident.
No, definitely not. It's tragic. And it just highlights these really deep, ongoing, complex issues around land resources, especially the clashes between farmers and herders, the sheer scale of this loss of life. It just underscores how urgently needed, effective conflict resolution is and real long-term safety strategies for people in those areas.
Mm-hmm. Moving to education now. We're seeing potential disruption, university unions threatening strikes. It's over, about 50 billion naira in unpaid allowances. And ASUU, the academic staff union, is also raising broader concerns, neglect, unmet promises. This feels like a familiar story in Nigerian higher education.
It does, unfortunately. The fact that these things keep coming up, it suggests, systemic underfunding, probably, and maybe a bit of a disconnect between the resources universities get and what's expected of the people working there. And strikes, they don't just disrupt learning for students, do they? They make you question how much priority education really gets as a, driver for the country's development.
Yeah. But on a more positive note in education, Borno State's government is offering scholarships, specifically for female students who scored over 250 in the UTME, the big university entrance exam. That seems like a really good step, especially for a region that's faced so many educational challenges.
Oh, absolutely. Initiatives like that, targeted ones, can be really effective for tackling gender gaps in education. By focusing on high-achieving girls, Borno isn't just empowering them as individuals. It's an investment, really, in the state's future leadership.
That's a good way to put it. We also saw a report about Gombe State's government defending a young girl, just 14. She apparently fled a forced marriage back in Taraba. This really shines a light on child marriage and what state authorities do or can do to protect vulnerable kids.
It's a powerful case, isn't it? It shows that clash between legal rights and some very deeply embedded social practices. Gombe stepping in sends a strong message, about upholding child protection laws. And it challenges those cultural norms that can be so harmful. It also makes you wonder about forced marriage across Nigeria more broadly, and if the laws are actually effective everywhere.
There's also some slightly unusual news about exams. NAPS, the National Association of Nigerian Students, wants answers about overnight WAEC exams, West African Examinations Council in Asaba, and the federal government is also probing night exams at a Unity school, also in Asaba. Night exams? That's unusual.
It's definitely not standard procedure, no. And it raises immediate questions, doesn't it? Logistically, it's strange. But also, what about exam security? What about the students' well-being, taking exams at those hours? Potential for cheating. The fact that both the student body and the FG are looking into it suggests there might be something worth investigating there. The outcome will be important for the exam system's credibility.
Right. Okay, let's shift to politics. Appointments. President Tinubu's made several to federal agencies. Names like Ninamani and Enim Shama are mentioned. And interestingly, it's getting different reactions. You've got Senator Ndum saying the inclusion of, 12 Northerners is a good sign. But then Chief Iwa Zurike is voicing concern about Southeast representation. It really highlights the challenge of governing such a diverse country.
It does. In Nigeria, with its regional and ethnic mix, government appointments are always sensitive. Always. Different groups, different leaders, they often have very different ideas about what fair representation looks like. These contrasting views just show that leaders constantly need to navigate these things carefully, trying to build that sense of inclusion and unity.
And we also saw President Tinubu acknowledging the pro-democracy activist Ayo Obe on her 70th birthday. Feels like a nod to the role civil society has played in Nigeria's democracy.
Exactly. Recognizing people who fought for democratic values, for human rights, it's a way for the government to kind of acknowledge the foundations of the current system and maybe signal a commitment to those principles going forward.
Okay, infrastructure. The FG has started repairs on the Lagos-Ibadan bridges. Given how absolutely vital that expressway is for moving people, moving goods, that must be welcome news.
Oh, definitely. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, it's like a main artery for Nigeria's economy. Connects the commercial heart, Lagos, to everywhere else. Keeping it in good shape through maintenance is just essential for trade, travel, everything.
And just a quick note, those 753 duplexes forfeited by the former CBN governor, Emefiele. The FG is saying they're not for sale yet, so anyone thinking of snapping one up, it seems a bit early for that.
Yeah, it's a reminder that there's a legal process, right?
Yeah.
For handling assets seized like that. There are steps involved before they can actually be sold. The government's just making it clear those steps aren't finished.
Got it. Security and justice. Following that jailbreak in Osun State, the FG just stepped up border security, especially after a murder suspect who escaped was recaptured. Shows how internal security and border control are linked.
Well, jailbreaks are always a serious worry, a direct threat to public safety. So, catching the suspect quickly and tightening borders afterwards, it shows they recognize the need to prevent more escapes and make sure criminals face justice.
On a more positive health note, the FG is apparently set to unveil 3 new cancer centers on May 29th. That sounds like a pretty significant step against a major health challenge.
Yeah, improving access to decent cancer care is critical. It's a huge public health need. These new centers, they could really make a difference in early detection, treatment options, and hopefully better outcomes for people affected by cancer in Nigeria.
And economically, we hear the minister inspected a steel facility, potential for 15,000 jobs there. Plus, the Rural Electrification Agency, REA, adding 120 jobs in renewable energy. Seems like efforts to boost employment, maybe diversify the economy a bit.
Yeah, those fit into the bigger picture of industrialization, sustainable development. Creating jobs, especially in sectors like steel and renewables, that can make a real difference to people's lives and contribute to economic growth long term.
The Student Loan Fund, NELSNND, marked its first year. They've dispersed 56.85 billion naira and received over 500,000 applications. 550,000 plus. That's a huge response.
That number of applications, it really tells you something about the need for financial help to get into higher education in Nigeria. And the amount dispersed shows the program is starting to do what it was set up for, making university more accessible. It'll be interesting to see the long-term impact. And if it's sustainable,
Then there's the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA, meeting with Kenya Airways. It's over a fine, and also reports of passengers being badly treated suggests they're focusing on consumer rights in air travel.
Absolutely. Regulatory bodies like the NCAA are crucial. They make sure airlines stick to international standards and that passengers' rights are looked after. This meeting sends a signal that passenger welfare matters.
The First Lady is also reported to be expanding her food security initiatives. Given the economy, the struggles many Nigerians face with food costs, that seems incredibly important.
Addressing food insecurity is just fundamental, isn't it? For social stability, people's well-being, efforts to boost food production, distribution, access, especially for the most vulnerable. That's vital work.
And a student from the University of Ibadan won an Amnesty International debate competition. InterVarsity. Nice to see young Nigerians engaging intellectually with big global issues like human rights.
Yeah, it reflects really well on the students, shows their talent, critical thinking, and their interest in tackling these complex challenges. It's a good sign for human rights advocacy in the country.
On policy, MOJS, they make meters, right? They're apparently backing Tinubu's ban on importing electricity meters. Sounds like support for building up local manufacturing in the power sector.
That's the idea behind that kind of policy. Stimulate local industry, create jobs in Nigeria, maybe become less reliant on imports for something as crucial as power meters. Its success, though, will depend on whether local production can really deliver the quality and quantity needed.
We also got a couple of interesting perspectives. A physician saying just creating an agency won't beat malaria without real political will. And Bishop Igela stating that actually most Nigerian pastors are extremely poor, kind of challenges some common narratives.
That physician's point is spot on, isn't it? You can have the structures, but without real commitment and resources, they don't achieve much. And the bishop's comment, yeah, it offers a different view on religious leadership. highlights the varied economic situations within those communities.
Quick run through some political bits. Abamoro says Nigeria won't become a one-party state, but there's talk of a split in the ADC party over maybe forming an anti-Tinubu coalition. And Atiku visited Arigbasola. Apparently his own coalition plans hit some snags. Peter Obi even mentioned maybe not running after 2027. Seems like the political scene is constantly shifting.
Absolutely. That's Nigerian politics for you. Constant realignment, strategic moves, people positioning themselves for the future. All this talk about coalitions and future runs just shows how dynamic it all is.
Also, Governor Adeleke eased the curfew in some Osun communities before Eid el-Kabir. That must be a relief for people preparing for the festival.
Yeah. Shows some responsiveness to community needs, especially around a major religious holiday. Allows people to move around, socialize more freely.
And the Gombe governor reacted to criticism from a northern group about anti-terror efforts. Shows there are different views on tackling security.
Well, security is complex. There are bound to be different opinions on the best way to fight terrorism and keep people safe.
Rear Admiral Ibis promised to fix up a technical and vocational center in Rivers focusing on skills, while Governor Uzodinma in Imo wants a fast probe into the hacking of the JMB website, stressing data security for education bodies.
Investing in vocational training is so important, gives young people employable skills. And likewise, protecting sensitive data at places like JMB is just essential for the integrity of the whole university admissions process.
There was also a report about leaked info on potential party defections, and the Akwa Ibom government apparently barred a channel's TV crew, raises questions about media access. Meanwhile, Kogi State's government denied reports it was under siege, little snapshots of politics, media, and state governance interacting.
Yeah, those touch on big things. Political stability, press freedom, government transparency. Shows that ongoing push and pull between politicians, the media, and the public.
Okay, turning more squarely to security and justice again. The military arrested 5 foreigners in Plateau, and the police extradited a fugitive wanted for multi-million-dollar fraud. Shows efforts against crime, both local and international.
These operations show cooperation, don't they, between different security agencies and sometimes with other countries to tackle crime that affects Nigeria.
Sadly, also a report of one person killed during a military raid on what was called an ESN Camp Eastern Security Network indicates security operations are still ongoing in certain regions.
Yes, it highlights those persistent security challenges in specific areas and the actions being taken, which can sometimes have tragic outcomes.
But on a more positive security note, troops reportedly stopped oil theft worth over 533 million naira. They arrested 51 people and shut down 18 illegal refineries. That's a pretty big hit against illegal oil operations.
The size of that number, N533 million, it just shows how much Nigeria loses to oil theft. So these military efforts to clamp down on illegal refining, catch the people involved, that's really vital for protecting the country's resources and income.
Elsewhere in Katsina, police neutralized a bandit, rescued 5 kidnap victims. Good news there. But then in Imo, suspected herdsmen reportedly abducted 2 siblings. And in Anambra, gunmen killed a whole family of 4. Just paints a grim picture of varied threats across different places.
It really illustrates how multifaceted insecurity is in Nigeria. You got banditry, kidnapping for ransom, communal clashes, other violent crime. Each needs a different kind of response, different strategies.
There's an international angle in justice, too. A UAE national is set to face charges in Nigeria over a big scam. And Peter Okoye from P-Square was cross-examined in an alleged fraud case. Shows financial crime is being pursued in different contexts.
These cases just underline the importance of the rule of law. It doesn't matter who you are, your nationality, or public profile. Holding people accountable for financial wrongdoing.
And following that plane crash in Ilorin recently, the NSI, the Safety Investigation Bureau, they've recovered the data card, the black box, and the site investigation has started. Hopefully that brings some answers about what caused it.
Recovering that data card is always a critical first step in investigating a plane crash. The information on it can be absolutely vital to understanding the plane's performance and what happened leading up to the accident.
Shifting to the economy, some potentially encouraging news here. A report suggests Tinubu's reforms have pushed customs revenue to a record $1.3 trillion in Q1 2025. That's quite a jump.
Yeah, that is a notable increase. It could mean that recent economic policies are starting to boost government income, maybe through more trade or maybe just more efficient customs work.
And the central bank, the CBN, reported a big rise in foreign exchange, FX, coming in through money transfer operators, $4.76 billion. That's good for the country's foreign reserves, presumably.
Oh, yes. More FX inflows can help stabilize the naira, provide a cushion for the economy against external shocks. It suggests maybe a bit more confidence in the Nigerian economy from people sending money back home.
Okay, moving to social issues. There's a really upsetting report about an actress, Jumoke George's daughter, allegedly sold into prostitution in Mali. Just underscores the horror of human trafficking.
It's deeply disturbing, a
Yeah.
tragic story that just highlights how vulnerable people can be to exploitation and how urgent the need is for stronger action, both in Nigeria and across borders, to fight these trafficking networks and protect people.
We also saw a worrying report from Sierra Leone nearby, a significant Mpox outbreak. Over 3,000 cases, 14 deaths. Reminds you that health issues in one country can affect the whole region.
Absolutely. Public health emergencies don't respect borders. It really emphasizes why regional cooperation is so important for tracking diseases, prevention, control efforts.
Briefly dipping into international news, just for context. Nigerian footballer Victor Osimhen reportedly agreed a deal with Al Hilal in Saudi Arabia, and Arsenal are apparently interested in signing Ademola Lookman. Nigerian football talent still very much in demand globally.
Yeah, it reflects the high level of skill Nigerian players have and their ongoing success in top international leagues.
In the tech world, Facebook is deleting old live videos, giving users 90 days to save them. And Elon Musk, after a brief outage at X, talked about refocusing on business. Just the usual churn in tech.
Yeah. Reminders of how fast digital platforms change and the occasional glitches that happen in that complex tech world.
And from North Korea, news that 3 people were detained after an accident during a warship launch. A rare glimpse of news from there.
It is, yeah. A small window into events inside North Korea, a country that's often in the geopolitical spotlight but quite closed off.
Lastly, preparations for the Hajj pilgrimage. NHCON, the Hajj Commission, held prayers in Saudi Arabia for President Tinubu and Nigeria. And Kaduna State has airlifted over 3,700 pilgrims already. Big steps towards this major religious event.
The Hajj is a huge logistical undertaking for Nigeria every year, with so many pilgrims involved. These preparations are absolutely crucial to make sure it all goes smoothly.
Okay, now for our Did You Know section, a little detour.
Yeah.
Did you know? The Sistine Chapel in the Vatican, it's so popular, it gets over 5 million visitors every year, and it was commissioned way, way back in 1477. That's incredible staying power.
5 million, that's just astonishing, isn't it? Really shows the enduring appeal of Renaissance art, the history of the Vatican. To think something created that long ago still draws such huge crowds from all over the world, it's remarkable.
And here's another one. When the first iPhone came out, 2007, it only had Apple's own apps on it, nothing else. Compare that to today. The App Store has over 1.4 million apps. What an explosion in software in, well, not that long a time.
It really does capture the incredible speed and transformative nature of mobile tech and that whole app world. Hard to even imagine a smartphone now without that massive choice of apps, you know?
Okay, finally, let's look at today in history for May 25th. Back in 1963, 32 African nations formed the Organization of African Unity, the OAU. A really key moment representing this unified push for decolonization, ending white minority rule on the continent. The OAU eventually became the African Union in 2002, carrying on that Pan-African idea.
A definite watershed moment in African history. Symbolized the continent's growing independence, its collective will to shape its own destiny. The OAU's impact on Africa's political landscape, it's just undeniable.
Also on this day, May 25th, but in 1977, the very first Star Wars movie was released. Went on to become this huge cultural phenomenon, launched a franchise that's still massive today. Who knew it started on this date?
A true landmark in movies. Star Wars has had such an immense impact on pop culture. Its lasting popularity speaks volumes about its storytelling, its imagination.
And our quote for today is from the artist Andrew Wyeth. Believe in yourself and believe in love. Love something. Simple, but quite powerful, isn't it? About self-belief and having passion in life.
It's a beautiful, concise reminder, those personal values that can really drive us, give meaning to things.
So wrapping up this deep dive, we've covered a lot just from one day's snapshot of Nigerian news and a few other bits. We've seen this wide range of connected issues, big government decisions, ongoing economic shifts, those persistent security worries, crucial social issues like child protection, healthcare access, and we also see the longer-term efforts, infrastructure, jobs, education. It's a complex picture, definitely, balancing immediate needs with those bigger goals. And those facts about the Sistine Chapel and the iPhone apps, they kind of offer a moment to think about human creativity and how fast technology changes globally.
What really stands out is just how dynamic Nigeria is. So many different forces are constantly interacting. It requires really careful handling, strategic thinking across every sector.
That Andrew Wyeth quote, "Believe in yourself and believe in love. Love something." It resonates personally, but maybe it also speaks to a collective need. Belief in Nigeria's potential, a shared passion for its progress.
It does underscore that idea, doesn't it? That even with all these complex national issues, individual belief and maybe a sense of collective purpose are vital for moving forward.
So here's our final thought for you to ponder. Taking all these diverse news items, the history snippets, how do they weave together? What picture do they paint of where Nigeria is right now and its place in the wider world? Are there underlying threads or connections you see tying together the local challenges and the global context? Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.